Good morning. Today our study is entitled Day of the False Prophet. We look at Matthew chapter 7 verses 15 to 17, which deals with false prophets. And we look at it from three angles: the normality of it, how we recognize false prophets, and how we go about being true prophets of God. First angle, the inevitability and normalness of false prophets. We look at Matthew chapter 7 verse 15. Watch out for false prophets. They come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ferocious wolves. And when we hear the term false prophets, we automatically think of a wizard with a hood hiding part of his face and a crystal ball for effect. But as common as fake people are, so are false prophets. They exist in the church, in our neighborhoods, in our workplaces. And basically, they preach Jesus, no matter how big or small their forum is, whether it's just ministering to people one to one, or whether it's in front of a congregation. And though they seem approachable, harmless like sheep on the outside, if you get close enough, you might see a ferocious wolf, that is if they don't gobble you up before. And this is Jesus telling us to not be naive. Watch out for them. And it's funny because sometimes non-believers use the fact that they are fake pastors, fake elders, fake Christians in general to detract from the church. But hello, Jesus saw this since 2,000 years ago. So you're a bit late. So the church is good, but false prophets are not, and we watch out for them. Second angle, how we recognize false prophets. We'll take it from Matthew chapter 7, verse 16. By their fruits you will recognize them. Do people pick grapes from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? It's simple. A false prophet preaches Jesus, but their lives don't reflect Jesus. And I think anytime we assume that position of preacher or teacher of the gospel, our lives need to conform to our words. I used to take a group of youth at a church on a Sunday evening. And prior to this, my life wasn't 100%. I spent a lot of time hanging with the wrong people, often living like an unbeliever. But once I assumed that position, it changed me. It compelled me to get my life right. It compelled me to get my life in alignment to what I was preaching. I didn't become perfect, but a lot closer to where I needed to be as a Christian. And my journey in life sort of took me away from my youth leading, which I think had a negative impact on my own Christian journey and resulted in many troubles a few years later. But if you're a preacher or a teacher and your life is not compelled to align with your teachings, then you're a false prophet. James chapter 3 verse 1 says, "Not many of you should become teachers, my fellow believers, because you know that we who teach will be judged more strictly. And this judgment is both by God and man." Now, I personally hate judging others. I think it's hypocritical. But if you become a teacher and your life does not align with the gospel, you will be judged. Maybe not by me or people who think like me, but by God and by everybody else. And just the act of declaring yourself a Christian puts you in that firing line. But the bigger the onus on you as a Christian, the more intense this magnifying glass over your life will be. Angle number 3, what makes us true prophets and true sons of God? We take it from Matthew chapter 7, verse 17. Likewise, every good tree bears good fruit, but a bad tree bears bad fruit. Our lives need to reflect Christ just as much as our tongues do. Being a true believer and a true prophet has very little to do with what we say, but more about what we do, the fruit that our lives produce, the fruit of the Spirit. Am I practicing love the way 1 Corinthians chapter 13 describes it? When I'm not preaching or ministering to people, am I exercising joy or am I being a grouch? Is my life creating peace round about me, or am I starting wars and empty rooms? What about my patience when another driver cuts me off? Does my life overflow with kindness, goodness, faithfulness? Now, Jesus told us to watch out for false prophets. Let that command be both external and internal. Let us live lives that back up the gospel that we preach. And let's also be wary of false prophets. Amen.